Hey everybody, welcome back to the Analog Oracle, where we examine solutions to digital age problems using time-tested principles. I know it's been a little while. We've been going through some changes around here. You might have noticed a new intro, some new naming. We're trying to change our pace a little bit and move, change with the times, basically. Um, I've had some friends, and a couple in particular, ask me if there are some specific things that we can do as individuals to resist and to push back against all the madness that we're seeing going on in government today. So today we're going to tackle something pretty critical, which is what meaningful actions can one individual take when the traditional constitutional guardrails appear to be falling apart? What can we do when executive overreach goes unchecked by Congress, when the oversight mechanisms are being dismantled, and when institutional safeguards all seem to be compromised? We have to ask, what can we do? Now, I will say that this isn't about partisan politics, but you know, some of the things we're going to talk about today definitely transcend party lines. This really is about the rule of law, about constitutional practices, and about the safeguards that have been built into how our government operates among the three branches. But let's be clear. Today, the three branches of government are all controlled by one party, and that party has completely abrogated its responsibility. Their Congress should be stepping in to take back its authority. The Congress is the one who controls the purse strings, not the president. Congress is the one who controls tariffs, not the president. It's insane that today our Congress, controlled by Mike Johnson and the Republicans in both the House and the Senate, have decided to just let things run when that just means that they are not exercising their authority, which further weakens the position of the House and the Senate in the future. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into some specific actionable steps that we as individuals can take. Um, they may not seem like much, and some of them are going to be a little bit more difficult than others. But of these three steps, these are things that we can actually do, and enough of us doing these together can have an impact. First, we're going to talk about how to be precise. That's the best way to put it. We need to understand what are the specific violations that we're talking about. One of the big one of the ways that this current government is practicing and is driving all of the massive changes is by doing what we call flood the zone, where they bring on so much craziness and so much change that we all feel lost and like we're floundering in the darkness. And making vague complaints about tyranny and overreach, those aren't actionable things. You have to identify specifics. What are the specific constitutional violations, the specific legal breaches? For example, you can't just say Executive Order 123 is unconstitutional. You have to identify why it's unconstitutional. In this case, in that example, Executive Order 123 violates Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate interstate commerce, for instance. Precision matters because it allows you to build coalitions with people who may disagree with you politically, but share constitutional values. There is a growing movement and a growing number of the MAGA movement who are becoming disillusioned, and we need to be able to join with them. These are people who have had the wool pulled over their eyes for years. If we can be specific and clear and concise, we can build alliances with them. We are one country, we are one nation. The divisiveness is coming from on high, and we can fight that. The specific the specific details also give courts the clear issues on which to adjudicate. If you just go to them and say, I think this thing is wrong without specificity, they don't have anything to move on. Also, it helps us to not just be dismissed as a partisan. In this case, oh, you're just a lib, you're just a crazy Democrat, you don't know what you're talking about. Again, specifics fights that. So I'm going to give some homework today. And your homework is choose one executive action you believe is unconstitutional. Research the specific clause or the law that it violates. Document this with citations into the Constitution, relevant court cases, and legal scholarship. Now, secondly, the courts remain our most reliable check on executive power, but they can only act when these cases are brought before them. Here's how you, as an individual, can effectively support strategic litigation. First, after we've been specific about the laws or the constitutional principles we think they're violating, first we have to identify what organizations are around that specialize in constitutional litigation rather than just advocacy. Organizations like the Institute for Justice, the Foundations for Individual Rights and Expression, or the Pacific Legal Foundation regularly challenge government overreach, regardless of which party is in power. So we need to support them, and we have to support them smartly. There are various ways. There's monthly recurring donations, even some small ones, help them plan long-term litigation, which can take years. You can volunteer your professional services if you have relevant skills. Reach out to them, find out what they need. There are a lot of us who are professionals in various capacities that they could use our help. Share their cases, but focus on the constitutional principles involved, not just the outcomes you want. Again, we are trying to build advocacy and build relationships with those who have been fighting us for years. Be specific, share the cases, and be clear on what principles are being violated. Also, you can look for individual plaintiffs with standing who are directly affected by these unconstitutional actions. Sometimes the most effective thing you can do is connect somebody who's been affected to individuals with legal organizations. Remember, constitutional litigation isn't about winning political points. It's about establishing precedent that strengthens protections against, regardless of who is in power. Now, while these are both things you can do, another very important thing, and some, to me at least, in some ways the most important, when we're thinking about this, while it's the national politics that get all the attention, the most effective resistance to these unconstitutional federal actions historically has been at the local level. Here's how to build what I call a constitutional resilience network in your own community. First, you have to start small, but stay focused. Find 5 to 7 people who are committed to constitutional principles rather than partisan outcomes. Again, we want to build and unite. The divisiveness has to end. That's what's destroying us today. These diverse political backgrounds, they really strengthen the group. We get away from the name calling and the madness and come down to, we all believe strongly that the Constitution is the backbone of our nation. And we can all agree on that together. Secondly, you want to focus your group on some specific things. What can you do as a group? One of the most important things you can do, one, is constitutional education in your community. Teach people what the Constitution means. There is a reason why the Department of Education and teaching standards and the guardrails around them have been so lax for so many years and have been weakening. We've seen the cessation of civics and social studies classes in our classrooms because those in power who want to remain in power are trying to ensure that the next generations don't understand what the Constitution is, don't understand how government works. That's how they gain control. That's how they've gained control now. And that's why a lot of people don't understand the impact that they're having. You need to monitor the local implementation of some of the questionable executive orders. There's a lot going on right now with the massive roundups by ICE and its abhorrent activities. You need to document effects of the unconstitutional actions on the local residents. We all have cameras in our pockets. Break them out, put them to work, take notes. You want to know names, badge numbers, IDs, if there are warrants, what judge signed the warrant, why did they sign it, and so on. You will need to create a local civil liberties rapid response network, build a community. If something is going on, be able to respond quickly. Again, the more light that we shine on this and bring to, just bring into the public eye, the more control we can get and the more scared they will run. Third, you need to engage in local institutions that have historically provided checks on federal power. Your city council, county commissioners can pass resolutions limiting local cooperation with unconstitutional federal actions. We're seeing that again. The clearest example today is with ICE and the limited amount of support that they are getting from local law enforcement agencies. Local bar associations can provide pro bono representation. Talk to them first and find out something they're willing to do. Community foundations can fund local legal challenges. Again, work with your legal organizations in your local community. And local media can document impacts of federal overreach. Can't say this enough. We have to engage the media. And today it appears that our traditional media is failing us. And mostly it's failing us because it's owned by the same oligarchs that are running our government and are trying to take over our country. The power of local action is that it's harder to dismiss or suppress than the national movements are. It creates thousands of friction points against unconstitutional implementation. Most protests get attention, but targeted advocacy creates change. And here's how to make your advocacy precision guided. First, identify the pressure points in the system. State attorneys general could bring multiple state lawsuits, which is happening today and can happen more. There are professional associations whose members are affected by unconstitutional actions who can support. Institutional stakeholders like universities and business associations are great for advocacy groups. And the minority party in Congress today has an institutional incentive to provide checks and balances, at least where it can. Second, you want to prepare for what I call constitutional action packets to share with pressure points. Again, information, education. The information is of the incalculable importance. Put together a one-page summary of the specific violation. Document what the concrete harms are that it caused. Provide legal analysis from representatives and recognized constitutional scholars. Build in some remedies, like propose solutions. Don't just identify the problem, but what are things we can do to solve the problem to restore the constitutional balance? Third, you can make use of public records. The Freedom of Information Act requests focus on implementation of questionable orders. You can pre-pull the details. What happened? How was it implemented? Who implemented it? So you can get some more traction. Again, specific focus. There are state-level public records requests. They can also be much more responsive. At the federal level, they will be resistant and drag their feet. State level, you can be a little more quick about it. And publication of all of this creates transparency. Again, work with your local media. Get this stuff into the local newspapers. People actually still read them. They are still very relevant in most communities. Remember, the most effective advocacy focuses on constitutional principles, not political outcomes. This allows you to build coalitions across the political divides. Again, we need to be working together, folks. And I'll just close out with this. Throughout American history, from beginning of the Constitutional Convention, continuing through the Civil Rights Movement, it was individuals taking principled action that have been the true guardians of our constitutional system. The actions we've outlined today, precisely identify constitutional violations, support strategic litigation, build local resilience networks, and engage in targeted advocacy. While these aren't flashy and they won't generate a viral social media moment, they work. They've worked throughout our history to course correct when our institutions falter. Remember, constitutional principles do transcend partisan politics. It's the same mechanisms that protect against overreach by one administration will protect against overreach by the next. Now, in our next episode, we're going to dive deeper into some historical case studies of how these individual actions have successfully checked executive power during previous constitutional crises. Although, believe me, not many of those have the madness associated today. Um, until then, I'm the Analog Oracle, reminding you that the most powerful technology for preserving our liberty remains an engaged citizen armed with constitutional knowledge.